Yeah, I was thinking like to talk about the current event is of Trump and the inauguration and him freaking out so many people.
Is he though? Is it he freaking people out, or are they freaking themselves out?
I think probably people, there's like both, right? I think there's people that are overreacting, of course, but then there's I think an ideological kind of viewpoint that when Trump says, "Hey, there's one or two genders, male and female," that goes against a lot of gender ideology that's been taught like in schools for a long time now.
Yeah.
So you have like a whole generation that is raised on this idea of like gender fluidity, 62, 85, 90 genders, you know?
Cake gender.
Cake,
Remember that one?
cake gender. That's right. It just keeps going. So I don't know. I just think like maybe there's some, like, when he said that, certain people, it was like a kind of an affront to a particular ideology.
Okay. Do you think he believes it himself, or do you think he's pandering to his constituents?
Hmm. I don't know. That's a good question. I tend to think that all politicians, just say things to kind of get their constituents, uh, stoked and give them opportunities for power in other places. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I would say that's probably affirmative.
Because he says a lot of things I like, but a lot of times I'm like, do you believe this yourself? Because I don't know, some of the stuff he does, I'm like, you're not really acting like what you say. But I mean, we're all hypocrites, so
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I mean, he's gone through a lot of changes in his life. It sounds like.
yeah,
I'm sure Trump at one point was very playboyish
yeah,
in his world. Um, but I mean, it's amazing to see him with his wife and his kids, his family, and
yeah.
so obviously he's gone through, a lot of
He's
changes.
definitely built different. I mean, if I took like a bullet to the dome, like I would have tapped out. That would have
Y-
been like,
yeah,
I'm done. Like
yeah,
I don't need this. I'm gonna go back to my Merlago and just chill out. I don't need this drama.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I know some of my friends back in California, of course, are, freaked out by this guy. And the things he says, especially when it comes to issues of sexuality and and I got to imagine that there's got to be a large population that is like, man, is this guy gonna like come after me? Or and that's kind of the scary thing that a lot of people talk about is he's going to militarize the country and inflict kind of a war on people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's definitely out there. But I feel like you get that on both sides. You get that like, when Biden was in office, like all the conservatives like, oh, he's gonna come and get us and turn our kids into trannies, and they're coming for us.
Yeah,
So it's like sensationalism on both sides. It's kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't have no any faith in the establishment. So I
yeah,
feel like it's all a sham to me. Like where they're just playing us against each other. It's like
yeah,
divide and conquer.
yeah. It definitely. I respect that because um, the fruit of everything, from what I see on both sides, seems always very adversarial, and it creates the fruit of it creates like more distance.
Yeah.
It seems like everything is so adversarial. It creates even a wider wedge in
Yeah.
between people.
It seems like it's become more extreme too. Because I remember like when little George Bush was in, like my friends were like freaking out. Like I wasn't really freaking out, but like he definitely at the time he didn't like align with my worldview,
Yeah.
and it was like it was like this guy is like the most evil guy, and now like he's like nothing. Like no one's like, oh yeah, remember he wasn't so bad. I prefer him over Trump. Like let's bring him back. So it's kind of like it's like all like illusions.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading the Gospel of John, and I was remembering the time where Jesus meets this woman at the well. And are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, and it's kind of a cool section, right, where he meets this woman, goes to Samaria. She's at the well, and he starts talking about, um, her life,
Hmm.
and really her, and then he kind of delves into her sex life.
Hmm.
And so he gets all sensitive, into the sensitive area of life.
Uh-huh.
And I find it cool because Jesus wasn't afraid to go there.
Yeah.
Eh,
Well, Jesus always puts his like finger right on the button. He
Yeah,
doesn't like. Yeah, he gets like what does it say like the word it's like a scalpel. It cuts right through you to the quick, like to the like it gets right at you where it meets. It gets in there.
yeah,
He doesn't like beat around the bush and like kind of
no,
sugarcoat it. I mean,
no,
he does sometimes, but it seems like most of the time Jesus gets like he puts his finger in the wound and like
yeah,
touches it.
yeah, and it makes me think like, and Jesus says something too, where he says, he says to her, "You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews." And I find this fascinating too, is that Jesus wasn't afraid to say to this woman, like, you don't know what you believe.
Hmm.
Like, he's saying to her, you believe wrong. And he didn't say, like, oh, like, he wasn't that guy of, like, I kind of, I understand you guys are trying your best, you know,
Hmm.
and, you've had some kind of issues in your culture, and, so you got different views. And, he wasn't that guy. He was the guy who said, hey, you know what? You guys don't know what you worship.
But I think at the same time, that's kind of like a lot of people think that's what Jesus is like, kind of like the ultimate hippie, like,
Mhm.
"Hey man, I know you're trying your best. I love you." That's like the worldview people have of Jesus. He's just
Yeah.
like kick back, wearing his Birkenstocks.
Where I think he was kicked back wearing his Birkenstocks, but the way he put his finger, like you said, on that area was so precise, like you said, scalpel like, and very doctor like, where it was so precise. It was like that he couldn't compromise you being wrong, and he wasn't afraid to say, hey, you're wrong. That salvation is actually from the Jews. It is from the Jewish people. The revelation that they've been given uh, is directly from Yahweh. It's
Hmm.
directly from the Creator. And God, in His sovereignty, have chosen this group of people to reveal His message of salvation to the world. And, Jesus, if he was alive today, like how many conversations would he had that is very much like this, that would probably get him on the cross again.
Oh yeah.
But he would say to someone like, hey, let's talk about your sex life. And you're like, what? And he's like, hey man, I know like, the people you're sleeping with. And I know kind of like what you do at night. And like I see that. And by the way, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know what you worship. I mean, it would be so intense.
Yeah, yeah, it would be intense. I mean, but I like, would they know it was Jesus? Like, would like, okay, so in this scenario, would the people know they're talking to Jesus, or would he just like, would it be like in his day where he's like comes up and you're just getting your water at the well, doing your thing, and then this guy's like, hey, give me a cup of that water,
Yeah,
and you're like, who's this? This guy? He's a Jew. Why is he talking to me? I'm a Samaritan.
right.
Or would they know in this scenario that he was Jesus?
Yeah, I'm
Because
saying,
I'm not likening myself to
yeah,
Jesus, but I've
yeah,
had like conversations like that with people, just
yeah,
like yeah, because every like people that aren't Christians a lot of time they think they're good people.
yeah,
They're just like, no, I'm pretty good, and I'm like, well, like, why do you think you're good? Well, because like I never killed anybody,
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but Jesus says if you have hate in your heart, you've murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just like, what, huh? And they,
Yeah, and I think in the scenario I'm saying like just not so much saying, "Hey, I'm Jesus," but and you're kind of moving into the point I was kind of getting at is that at some point, in our lives as Christians, there always is going to be this moment of confrontation,
hmm
that Jesus has of where we say, "Hey," you know, and we go into the like, you know, you're not you don't understand the truth.
I think that should be happening like regularly in your life, if not daily.
Uh-huh.
You should daily be like, wow, I'm like messed up. Why do I do that? Why did I do that? Like, what's wrong with me? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you should constantly be like feeling that. If you're like I'm doing pretty good, I'm pretty awesome. Like that kind of scares me. Like really, like you really, because I know I'm not. Like you must be holier than me because I feel like pretty garbagey. And I mean, I know there's no condemnation for those in Christ, but still, like I kind of like, wow, man, I could do a lot better. Like,
Yeah, and you're talking about like having that kind of self-reflection. So like, you realize that if Jesus inspects you, that you're going to be found wanting, that you aren't, you can't pass the test as far
yeah,
as, you know, um, and even us going to people that there might be that kind of confrontation, and we want to do it lovingly and we want to do it compassionately, but we also want to share truth. And I think I find that in Jesus, where he wants to share truth. Like if Jesus was inaugurated, right? What would Jesus share? Would he say, "Hey, by the way, my father did make them male and female,"
uh,
you know, and that kind of thing. It's like Jesus does share truth,
yeah,
and he does it compassionately, and I love how he does it relationally too, and and uh, and that's where I think maybe like the Trump thing, if we get back on that, can get feel a little awkward, because it doesn't feel very relational when he says the things he says.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah. No, he's a showman. He's like out to like shock people.
Yeah.
And like he's kind of like P.T. Barnum. He's just like sensational. He knows that's what sells. But it's funny because like I'll see him like in different scenarios. I've watched him like when he's doing things and they like in courts and stuff. He doesn't act that way. It's like definitely a act he's putting on, a show he's putting on for the crowd.
Hmm.
He's very different. Like when you get him you see him in a small group and he's talking to people. He's not like, oh, you pig! Like, look at this slob. Who are you? What do you want?
Yeah.
Hey, Pocahontas. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's not doing all that. It's like he definitely knows how to like whip people up into a frenzy and like get them going.
Yeah.
Like
I'd say so.
I I heard Russell Brand say this about, I think it was Margaret Thatcher or someone else, but I feel like the same thing applies to Trump. He's like, hey, if you don't like Trump, don't watch him too much because you're gonna start to like him. Like if you watch him too much, you're gonna start to be like, yeah, that was kind of funny. Yeah, like, this guy's not too bad. He makes some good points.
Yeah, and I could see that kind of show. That's something I don't see in Jesus much. I see him always. Um,
No, he would like, get away from the crowds when things got too hot and like people are. He's like, no, we gotta like. This ain't
yeah.
what this is about.
Yeah.
Like we gotta go up to the mountain now. Like
Yeah, whenever they wanted to exalt Jesus and
yeah,
put him up, he always kind of went, "No, my time's not yet," and very relational. And I think that's how we got to be, like with because I would imagine for anybody who is on, say, the political left, um, that they would be scared in the sense that they go, "Hey, I'm queer. I'm part of queer culture. I'm part of LGBTQ plus stuff, and that's my culture. And now I got this guy in there who's kind of saying things that's against my ideologies and the way we think." And you know, and I hope us Christians are going to be able to just one-on-one it. Just be able to meet them where they're at and have, in a sense, conversations with them, knowing that we have different world views
Yeah.
and which brings about a different ideology, and discuss those things, because I think I see Jesus doing more of that, that I find very admirable. That he would go out of his way to go to Samaria to meet this woman, to have the talk about sensitive topic. I mean, and obviously his disciples knew it was sensitive because they say, "Hey, man, why are you with a woman?" You know, but you know,
So,
yeah,
speaking of like all this, Jesus getting inaugurated.
yeah, yeah. I know.
What do you think, or do you even know about it, at that female Episcopalian pastor
Oh man,
that
totally.
gave that sermon?
Yeah, I've seen her before. I've heard her before. She's been on something before, be a news network or something like that. Here, let me mark that. I just heard your mic smack. 17 minutes. Okay, so I could cut that out. But so she's someone who I think I've seen before and heard her before. I wasn't surprised because it's the Episcopalian Church. And this gets me, by the way. This got me. What got me was this. If you're gay and you complain at, quote, fundamentalist evangelical Christians, which I would be included in that. That's not how I was raised. I was raised very progressive, Marxist dad. So super other side. But I certainly have been in a conservative evangelical Christian, people would say fundamentalist, church for a long period of time now.
Longer than you're in that other world.
Yep, longer. Yep.
But it's funny.
30-20.
I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I've heard you say it yourself that you feel like your mind still wants to go there a lot of the times, even though you've been in this world longer than you were in that other world.
Absolutely.
You still want to revert back to that other world.
Because it's parental, right? It's like your education, growing up. And because it's parental, meaning it's from my parents, there is a kind of it's like embedded. It's like when you embed something into a website. It's like the code is in there, and it's tough. But I was thinking, like, what I saw with that Episcopalian lady was like, you have an open door to go to the church you want to go to. I mean, there are plenty, obviously, of fellowships that you can go to that will be very like, man, you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, we're cool with that. And so I'm not sure why the LGBTQ community harps so much on fundamental evangelicalism if you have a community that's available. And it's not just the Episcopalian Church, by the way.
Yeah.
There's universal churches. There's many different, quote, denominations that are very much open to all kinds of, that kind of ideology. And so I kind of was, that first hit me when I heard her share. I was just like, there's a lot of people can go to this.
Yeah.
It would be like me saying, hey, you know what? The Episcopalian Church obviously believes in things that I feel are not biblical.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I could just harp on the Episcopalian Church forever, and just, they're not being right with the Bible, and I could do that with many other churches. But, for me, I'm focused just on the church that I belong to.
Yeah.
And what we're doing to hold to what we believe is true biblically.
Yeah.
And so I kind of thought when I heard her, I got to tell you too, is that when I heard her, I thought, oh man, this is how I was raised. I thought this is kind of the way you stick it to the man. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, it's like, I hope you're just loving. and I hope you're just merciful.
Well, that's what I didn't get. Why was she like have mercy? I'm like, he's not gonna. Do you guys like think he's gonna start doing like witch hunts and like
Yeah,
torching people and
yeah,
stuff? Like, what do you think is gonna happen?
yeah. That's the scary thing about sex topics is it they're so sensitive. Like no one wants to be told like, hey, the way you like sex and the way you like to perform sex and your relationships within sex, the sex community is exposed, is made known. No one wants kind of that kind of thing.
But everybody's got to face that. Even us as Christians got to face that. Even to me, I got to look in that mirror and say like, yeah, God doesn't like the way I have sex either. A lot of times, probably or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Even I have stuff, so it's just not them. It's me too. It's all of us. All of our sex lives are messed up. Just not the gays or these people or that people. All of us have a dirty, nasty sex life that God doesn't approve of.
Yeah, but I do think that traditionally there's been certain groups for sure, I would imagine, that have been singled out than other
Oh,
ones.
big time. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
Because like I said, all of our sex lives are messed up. So I feel like too often the church wants to harp on like the gays, and I'm not, and it's wrong. Yeah, it's a sin, definitely. But like, what's going on at your house? Like,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the speck out of your own eye. The law,
Yeah.
if we watch your brother's speck.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of it's hypocritical, but
Yeah, but I think that might be a part of that overhang, of just like, man, are we going to be witch hunted? Are we going to, is this, are we going to have this like fundamentalist group of people, kind of come at us and say, hey, you know what, you're into this, you're into BDSM? No. You're into blah, 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 that kind of thing.
which is kind of good, I think, because I do think we need a checks and balances, or we could end up in Nazi Germany again. Like it's always a possibility. It's always a possibility.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, us humans, man, we're good at repeating,
Yeah.
and that's for sure. Yeah, so when she says like, have mercy, and I think like, okay, I get that. Okay, I get that. I think where I would kind of beg to differ from her is just, maybe in that position, can you go to Trump, by him like alone? Can you just pull him aside and just say, "Hey, I'm concerned about the community I'm a part of, and the way you sound is like it's kind of like a military thing,
Hmm.
you know, and could you have mercy on them? Do you have mercy on them? Or it seems like there could have been, like just a one-on-one with the guy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like she definitely wasted her platform as a person of the cloth. I mean, like there you have like the whole world watching. Here's your chance to get up there and give the gospel, and it was your chance. That's what you're called. I mean, if
Yeah,
you're biblically following, here was your chance. You could have got up there and you said anything, and that was like, okay, I'm gonna stick it to Trump. That's
yeah,
what you chose to do
yeah,
with your time.
yeah. Make it very, very political and very, politically charged.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
and it's tough because when you're a pastor, and I've had some years doing this, but when you're at the pulpit, what you're trying not to do actually is you're trying not to get your personal vibe going, like your personal vendettas or your personal, you might have had a counseling session with that guy in the second row. You
hmm
might have had an encounter with this person over there sitting in the 10th row,
hmm
of your congregation. But the last thing you're wanting to do is to single any kind of person out and a kind of things that you've talked about with them before. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember who it was, but I think that like your job as a pastor is to serve the gospel out without getting your fingers in the mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what I like about teaching verse by verse through the Bible. Then you can't get on your hobby horses as
Right.
much,
Right.
because everybody has their hobby horses. But when you're going verse by verse, you got to hit the easy stuff, the hard stuff. You got to hit everything.
That's
It's
right.
just not I can't get up here and talk about the gays every week, because they really
Right.
grind my gears, and I'm gonna stick it to them.
Yeah, there was this one encounter I had. Okay, so our daughter went to college at one of the more liberal, or sorry, went to high school at one of the more liberal high schools in the country. It was in San Francisco proper
Mm-hmm.
on California Street. It was a private institution, maybe 25% Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the Nancy Pelosi grandchildren and those people go to this school.
Mm-hmm.
$25,000 a semester. This is high school. This is not a cheap school. I happen to have a relative who was one of the deans
Mm-hmm.
of the school. And so I had this interesting opportunity that most people would never get to have one of my offspring attend that school
Mm-hmm.
at a very, 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 very cut priced cost.
Uh-huh.
And our daughter would live in the outer Richmond, which if you don't know, is just outside of downtown San Fran. And so our daughter, we did it, and it was very unique, very liberal school. And the ideologies are not biblical ideologies in the slightest.
Were you scared about that?
No, we were excited simply because we're evangelical. So because we're evangelical, we tend to want to outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my background being progressive,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of knew already, what it was all about.
Yeah.
And so I was able to kind of express that to our kid, and she was raised around me and my family, so she already knew some of that background too. We thought it was an opportunity to really reach out to this community, and I remember I wanted to go to church there one day, and I thought, you know what, dude, I'm gonna go into a affirming church.
Mm-hmm.
And they have stickers in San Francisco of kind of like a rainbow,
Uh-huh.
on the door, so it's like,
Yeah.
that's
It's cool.
it's cool. Whatever you're into, man, just come on in. And so I went into the Methodist Church.
Uh-huh.
Now that's another mainline denomination, as you know,
Yeah.
right? The Methodists are from a guy named John Wesley.
Mm-hmm.
And John Wesley was a very Bible believing dude,
Yeah.
like a literal Bible believing guy, and was very into discipleship. Anyway, I went into this affirming church in the Methodist church,
Uh-huh.
and there was a lesbian minister.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, but I saw a very similar presentation
Uh-huh.
in the Methodist church in San Francisco as than the one that I heard in that Episcopalian church
Uh-huh.
that was given by that lady. It was very much a social justice message. It was very much geared towards, real justice, and of course, justice to the LGBTQ plus community, and that's how it was being framed.
Uh-huh.
And so whatever's not in agreement with LGBTQ philosophy or ideology is wrong, and I got that clear as day.
So did they say anything about Jesus? Did they?
No,
No.
they didn't. They didn't talk about Jesus at all.
Was there any ritual, like communion or anything, to
they-
kind of give it a sheen of religion or something?
What they did is she read a proverb, and then it was really different. She said, can everybody get in groups of 5 and in the congregation, get up, find 5 people around you, and discuss the proverb and how it relates to what I'm sharing with social justice.
Oh
and
no.
and it was really interesting. And I can't remember what it was, but I remember I knew the passage well.
Uh-huh.
And so in the discussion group I had, I said, "Oh, that Hebrew word means this."
Uh-huh.
And I remember all five of the people went, "Whoa, like what, really?" And I go, "Yeah." And it's used elsewhere, blah 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 blah. And I could see their eyes light up like, "Wow, man, dude, teach us."
Uh-huh.
So I said, "Well," I taught them the proverb and what it meant and where it's used elsewhere in the Bible. And they were blown away. They loved it. They thought it was the greatest thing. They were like, "God, I got something out of it." They were totally encouraged.
Well, that's awesome because like what that person did was like the last way you want to teach the Bible. You don't break up into groups and say, "What do you guys think this means?" Like, no, let's comb through the scriptures and see what they say about what this means, not what Beau thinks it means and what Steve thinks it means and Billy over here. Like that's like the craziest way to do church to me.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a hermeneutic error. Hermeneutics, the study of how to study the Bible. And where she was doing a interesting hermeneutic, and that is like, it's not really what it means to the writers, it's what it means to you. And I was trying to help them understand this is what was the intended purpose of the passage, and this is how it is utilized throughout the scripture. And it's so funny. She said, she goes, "Okay, great, great, great. Well, okay, can you all elect one person from your group to come in front of the church and share?" And of course, my group goes, "Beau, you're on." And I just laughed. I just thought within myself, "Man, God, you're so good," you
That is
know.
awesome.
And so I got a chance to get in front of the church and share and actually teach the thing. And the lady knew like I was teaching this,
Uh-huh.
like, and she was kind of like, "Whoa." I could tell she was a little bit like tripping out, like that was good and everybody's digging it. Like I could tell everybody's digging it, but I'm not sure, like, I want you here next week. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I'm surprised they didn't run you out of town.
No.
That'd be like me
Yeah.
standing up in math class and be like, "No, sit down, teach. Let me show you actually how to do this equation right here, guys. You want to, divide by pi on this stuff." What she's
Yeah,
talking
but the
about.
whole class, in your situation, the whole class would be like, "Man, thanks for doing that," because they were getting it. And I think she saw people's excitement and my excitement teaching it too. And so she didn't want to squander that by being mean,
Uh-huh.
but I could tell it was just like, okay, Um,
I mean, yeah, and I believe that you should be excited when you teach the word. Like I think Alistair Begg once talking about saying that like your congregation only is going to be excited as you are. Like don't get up there and like drone on and not if you're not passionate about it. Like you should be passionate about it because that it's infectious, that passion that you
Yeah.
have for it. People see you're excited about it, you're passionate about it, and it gets other people excited and passionate about it.
yeah, yeah. And she had the Episcopal lady had a real quiet demeanor. But I almost sensed like she was nervous and, kind of super frail, like, you know, um, like she was giving him a rebuke, but she was like nervous to do it a little. She was doing it, but and it just, it just wasn't. A biblical model I think is found when Jesus says, "Hey, if your brother sins against you, go privately and tell him." Just get with him by yourself. You're obviously only 10 feet from him.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna have some face time. And it's a prayer time. So pray. Pray for him, as 1 Timothy chapter 2 says. We are to pray for all leaders and those in authority. So as Christians, we pray for Kamala. We pray for Biden. We might not like their policies, but we pray for them. And if I'm at a prayer meeting and they're saying, "Hey, Beau, can you be one of the pastors to pray for President Biden?" I would imagine my job isn't to go up there and say, "Hey, I think what you did during the COVID time was like a giant oligarchy, like technocratic, like 1984 Orwellian, thing, you know, That's not what I would be up there for, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would hope. Yeah,
I'm up there to pray for the guy.
yeah.
You know. What did you think of her?
Uh, I don't know. I thought it was weird. I was like, who set this up? Like, obviously, this wasn't Trump's people. I was like, how did this happen? Like, this was like a setup. Like, he wouldn't have chose her. I know. I mean, I've seen him hang out with Greg Laurie before and stuff, and I'm sure you could have got Greg Laurie to go do it. So, like, I'm like, who hired this lady? Who
Well,
like?
it was in like a traditional Episcopalian church, wasn't it?
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, because I started reading online because I was like, what just happened here? What is this?
Yeah.
And I guess is an Episcopalian. He got married in an Episcopalian church. His children went to Episcopalian schools.
Okay.
So I don't know if like someone like duped him and was like, hey, there's this well-known like Episcopalian like priest lady. Have her do it. And he's like, oh yeah, so sure, have her do it. And then he's like, oh, what did I get myself
It's
into?
so weird, dude. I did a wedding once in San Diego at an Episcopalian church. And I remember like I thought like I knew the Episcopalian church like kind of got really watered down, let's
Mm-hmm.
say biblically, years ago. So this was probably 15 years ago. So they've already kind of gone through their transition of really not being very conservative biblically.
Mm-hmm.
But when I walked into that church, I was leaning on this little back gate on the altar, and they said, "Don't lean on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ceremonial altar." And I was like, "What?" Like, man, and I could tell they were bummed. They were like offended that I leaned on this table that was used for some ceremony in the Episcopalian church. And I just thought, this is so weird. I'm in a church that has really watered down the Word of God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, they kind of allow all kinds of stuff. And, they don't really take a real literal view of things.
Mm-hmm.
And here you go in there and they're offended that you lean on their table.
What's the scripture that says, well, they'll have a form of holiness but deny the truth?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I
Damn,
grew
it's
up in
power.
the Catholic Church, so that doesn't surprise me because I remember as a kid hearing about, like, before we made our first Holy Communion, they took us and, like, this is the tabernacle. And there was, like, this little dark corner in the church, and that's where they kept the host and everything. And they're like, if the church was ever to catch fire, it is the priest's job to go in here, no matter what, if he loses his life, to save the host, because it is well, he hasn't so that didn't even make sense because he hadn't even blessed it yet. So, but once they
Right.
bless it, the transubstantiation is the blood and body of Christ.
Right.
So more than anything, he'll risk his life to save the host
Huh.
out of the tabernacle. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
As a little kid, I was thinking like, I wouldn't want that job.
Yeah, totally. But it seems so contradictory to me. It's like, and it's like if you really are kind of, watered down, well, they're not watered down in all kinds of things, meaning some things they're really conservative about. Don't touch the table,
Yeah.
that seems pretty conservative. And obviously that lady was very conservative with her belief system.
But I think
You know.
we do the same thing. I think we're guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
There's things in my life where I'm
Yeah.
like, I would never do that. Oh, how dare you do that?
Right.
But then I'm like, well, that's not a big deal. So what? I cheated on my taxes. Like, what do you care? Like,
Right.
But you sin different than me now. How dare you?
Yeah, and that's what I find with the right and the left. I mean, I just see that all the time, and I see that growing up. When I look back on growing up, I see it now, where everybody does the same thing. Everybody seems to do the same thing, and they say they're liberal, but then they don't accept you. Then you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, you're not really accepting of all things because you're not accepting of me.
Yeah.
But they're into their thing, and this person, we all have different belief systems, and what we believe to be true. And I think the difficulty is that even in the science community, I was listening to Brett Weinstein the other day, famous science guy, him and his wife. He was the guy who was had the big controversy at Evergreen University in Seattle and all kinds of stuff. But very much not a theist, not into God. Him and his wife, I think they're evolutionary biologists, maybe. but they are very much against trans ideology. So they
Hmm.
just go, man, that just scientifically, it's like this. There is no kind of 62 genders, and there
Yeah.
is no like. It's not in the animal kingdom. It's not in our kingdom, you know, and and that their take is not accepted within the that lady who shared that prayer, that Episcopalian,
Uh,
that lady wouldn't accept uh, those scientists,
yeah.
and, and they're just trying to go off of just the bare bones science of it,
Yeah.
like what is real in mammals, um, and so they have no hill to die on, you know.
Yeah.
They have no ideology that they're trying to hold up. They're just saying this is what we know just in the lab, you
I mean,
know.
that's what science should be.
Yeah,
That's
you'd
how you
hope so.
perform real science.
Right, right. But you get the idea that, um, you know, I'm not sure that lady who said the prayer would be very accepting of, Brett and his wife, um, even though they're not theist at all, and you can't put them in the conservative Christian world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not. They don't fit in that, but that kind of thing. But yeah, it was weird. I mean, it was a weird. It wasn't really a prayer. It was just like a plea, if
Yeah.
you will.
Why do you think she was scared? You said you thought she seemed like timid.
She just, I don't know, maybe it's just her size, and she seems very frail,
Hmm.
and it just sounded like when she was talking, like, instead of being strong and just like, you know, like you need to have mercy on the transgender community.
Hmm.
And she just seemed like she was a little like peddling a little bit like, there's people in our community and they are the fragile ones, and you need to have mercy on these people.
Yeah, that's
And
what like bothered me the most about it.
yeah.
Because then, like, if you don't really know your Bible too well, you'd be like, "Yeah, that sounds like Jesus." I think that's what Jesus would say. It was kind of like I almost felt like it was almost like a half truth,
Yeah.
like kind of like, "Oh, like yeah, just have mercy on people." And
Well, that's why I
it's,
brought up John
uh
4,
huh.
because I thought Jesus coming to that woman at the well and saying, "Hey, you don't know what you believe." you know?
Because I do believe that Jesus would get up and say, "Have mercy," but then he'd say a lot of other stuff after that. That would
Yeah.
just be the half of it. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
wouldn't stop at that and be
Yeah.
like, "All right, break, everyone go."
Yeah, I think it would have been cool if she just would have just read off the Beatitudes. She didn't have to. She could have just read the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, man. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the meek. They're going to inherit the earth. You read the Beatitudes and you go, man, dude, those things are awesome. I mean, and I think that would have been a cool thing to share. It's definitely scriptural. Um, it just, she just seemed to, she obviously wanted to make it hot button political, and really make sure that, the people that came into the country, that could potentially be deported, that was included in her thing, right?
Well, yeah, she hit all her
She
topics.
hit all of her topics, yeah. So yeah, it's like she went through all of the main topics of that side.
Well, you
You
know
know,
what though? Like, I'm an equal opportunist. Let's beat up Trump a little bit. He came out and he's like, "I want an apology. I found her sermon uninspired and terrible, and I demanded
Did he?
apology." Yes, and it's like he could have came out and been like, it would really have been nice if she got up there and gave the gospel and everything.
Yeah.
But he fumbled the ball too. He comes out and like, "Oh, she was very mean to me, very mean, and she was terrible at her job, and I've never sat through a worse sermon in my life." And I'm just like,
Yeah, and that's a great point, Steve. Wouldn't it have been cool? I mean, we all got these platforms, and to use platforms good. Even, just in our lives as a father, as a, worker, wherever we're at, but we have platforms. And, how many people go to their work and they use that platform just to complain? And, you think of Trump with that platform, And he could have, you're so right. He could have just said, "Hey, you know what? You know, I understand why she's saying that. Like I get it, you know. And you know what, man? It's like I forgive her. And, I want to learn to love her as, Christ loves me." Dude, that would have blown people
Yeah,
away.
what up?
People would have been like, "Whoa!" Like, and that kind of thing. And but I didn't hear the quote, but I'm gonna have to find that.
Yeah, it was pretty. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, because I could see him saying like, "Oh, real bad, bad. That's
Yeah.
the, real bad. That's the worst bad ever." And that's how he tends to talk. Is like, I did find like, I think I think where I can struggle with Trump is this idea of like it's going to be the most glorious thing ever. I mean glory. I mean we're going to be the gold. It's the golden age. It's the best. It feels very Tower of Babel like to me.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I feel like I gotta like. I feel in my own heart. I'm like, yes, and what I'm actually find myself worrying about is what's gonna happen 4 years from now.
Uh
Like I'm just like, oh, the pendulum's gone this way. So what's gonna happen in 4 years? It's gonna, and I gotta
Oh
be
yeah.
like, why are you worrying? We might not even be here 4 years. We may get raptured tonight,
Yeah.
and I'm already worrying more than I am celebrating. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, we only got 4 years, man. We got 4 years, and oh, it's all gonna break loose. Like the 4 years is gonna be good, but whatever comes after, I know it's gonna be a mess.
Yeah.
Because I really do feel like it is a pendulum, and it's swinging. I've always said it started with Obama. I believe the country was not ready for a black president. I do believe racism is alive and well in America, and people were not ready for Obama. And so what did we do? We went the exact opposite way, and it's just going, and the pendulum just swinging back and forth wildly now.
Yeah, and it feels aggressive. It feels like the
Yeah.
pendulum does go aggressively. No matter which way it's swinging high.
Yeah, it just seems way more intense, like we were saying at the beginning, like with George W. Bush. Like he's just like, oh, he's like a lovable goof. Like a lot of people didn't like him, but he's just like, but they're like, now it's like life or death. It's like if we don't win, it's over. I'm moving. I'm leaving the country. It's like,
Yeah.
let's get out of here.
Yeah, and it almost, it kind of reminds me of that, of this too. Is there's so much sexual ideology nowadays, and sexual variety, and I think there's always been sexual variety in the world, and don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of ideology that's attached to it today. A lot of I was raised on a lot of Marxism philosophy, and so there's this underlying philosophy that surrounds these topics, and it's been taught more and more in the educational departments of our country.
How do you think those two things became tied together? Because if you look at history, the first thing communists do is they start getting rid of all the gays.
Hmm.
They come in and they start killing them off. So I don't know how those two things got tied together. There's like a coffee shop here in town, and it's owned by a lesbian couple, and they have like pictures of like Che Guevara up in there. And I'm like, do you know what Che Guevara did to homosexuals? You know what he would do right if he walked in here right now? What he would do to you?
Yeah.
And it's just like it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
and yeah, it's almost like I almost feel like it was more not so much a communism education, but more but it had a communism humanistic side to it in this country with guys like John Dewey, the Huxleys, and this is very early on in the 1900s, and they were educators, but they were humanist, and so they put about these humanist manifestos, and they had it had a kind of their belief system in it. There's no God, this kind of thing, but very much hedonism was very much a part of that philosophy, which is a little different from like the Mao idea of wanting to get rid of certain sexual practices and have everybody conform to like this kind of gender neutral society that he was into, or Hitler that really took his dictatorship and said, no, there's not going to be any, I don't want any porn, I don't want any of this, we're going to make a purity movement and kind of go that really strict route. What happened in this country educationally was more of a human hedonistic philosophy that was a part of these early people. And so they weren't, along with guys like Alfred Kinsley. Is it Kinsley or Kinsey?
The Kinsey report. The guy
Kinsey,
that's
yeah,
yeah.
Kinsey. Yeah. So, he was a big guy that was very much into humanism as well. And, and all this humanistic, hedonistic philosophies were very much entwined in this country. And so you have kind of an outflow, I think, of it in the way we're raised in our education systems, where we have kind of a very secular idea in a lot of ways of things, and we also have that a very individualistic idea too, meaning what's good for me, and we don't look at the collective per se. How
Yeah.
how does my sexuality affect the world 100 years from now?
I think that's a very Western thing. Where in Eastern culture, it's more about like the family. What bring honor? It's not so much about what's good for you. It's like what's going to bring most honor to your family.
Yeah, it's collective. They're looking
Yeah.
at the collective,
Yeah.
right? Where, humanistic philosophy was very much when it was when the individual hedonistic ideas were entwined into humanism, and then you could see how it grew and grew and grew, where people kept saying, "This is what I want to do." Why can't I do what I want to do? And someone would say, well, if everybody did what you want to do, no one would be on the planet,
Mm.
because you can't have babies that way, you know? And so obviously it's a bad thing, because if everybody can do it, and only a particular small group can, because the ramifications are there's no offspring, right? Then obviously there's something wrong with that. But the philosophy is, no, I do what makes me happy, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's like one of the major themes we see in the Bible. Everyone just wants to do what makes them happy. They
That's
don't want to
right.
follow God. I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way.
Right. And so, I mean, that's, I think, my answer to why those two things are fused together, you know, and why, today you have a sexuality that is so individualistic, to where it's like, because we don't see the collective. What I see very clearly is that through technological advancement, people have opportunities to live in ways that they never were able to live in, and a sustainable way of living. Meaning you couldn't live a sustainable life in a particular sexual context back in the day. But today you can, through technology. There's medicine that you can take to heal your sexually transmitted disease.
Mm.
You have operations that can let you kind of go the way you want to go. You have baby making machines and facilities that just breed babies, make babies, so that you can now have a baby. So now it's sustainable, where 100 years ago it wasn't sustainable.
Mm.
You couldn't sustain that if you had a farm, right? And you said, you know what, man, I just want to do what I want to do sexually.
But that's a very like brave new world.
Yeah.
They had like baby making factories. We'll make this one smart. We'll make this one dumb.
The
we'll
alpha
make
betas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll add a little of this cocktail in there. We're
Yeah.
like designer babies. We're gonna build our own little society. We need more. Hey, we need more workers.
Yeah.
We need more of this.
And I think Brave New World was onto something. Was that when you live a lifestyle that is not organic and not sustainable, then you force the hand of technology to meet government to sustain you,
Mhm.
to sustain your individualistic desire. And so what you're doing is you're forcing government to grow and become more overseeing of the people, and to incorporate technology, and to regulate technology to be able to meet people's individualistic sexual desires.
what I find interesting about that book is like Huxley was like kind of sour on everyone because then you have the savages and they have all these like remnants of religion and they're just kind of mixing them and mashing them
Yeah.
together. So he's even saying like, well, these people over here in the Brave New World, they're messed up, but these people in the Savage Land, they're messed up too. Like everyone's just messed up.
Yeah.
Everyone's just
Sounds very biblical.
yeah.
We need saving, man. Totally. Yeah. So, yeah, I think what I get, from the time, with you today is that, use your platform wisely. We've seen, I think, lately a lot of platforms not being used very wisely. And sometimes they've been, I don't want to say all the time. I mean, there's been a lot of good things too. I mean, there are a lot of good prayers and a lot of people really seeking the Lord. And I think that's cool. Um, Certainly people making their thoughts known. Um, but, um, but I think for those that are on the Christian side of it, now more than ever, man, we're going to be under a microscope, of like, you say you're a Christian, like, let's see it in action.
Well, what else I thought was interesting about what happened with the Episcopalian priest or whatever they are. I was reading different articles online put out by MSNBC and stuff, and they're talking about actually most Christians align with what she was saying. The ones that don't are very fringy. Evangelicals are very fringy. They're out on the wayside, but this is actually how 90% of Christians view Christianity, is the way she was showing it, presenting it to you. Which I was like, I don't know. That was just wild that they're making those kind of claims to me. That like,
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, if it is, I mean, that's a sad commentary.
I mean, I do believe there is some truth to that. I mean, I believe like this is kind of like a buzzword right now, but like Christian nationalism is alive and well. Like I'll meet a lot of people that are very right leaning, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm a Christian." Oh, really? Where do you go to? Well, I don't go to church. Oh, well, like, do you read your Bible? No, no, I don't read my Bible. And I'm like, all right, like, but you just told me you're a Christian. Well, yeah, because I vote Republican, so I'm a Christian.
Right.
And it's just like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's kind of sad, bro. Because that,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of that. But I do think there's a lot of, I mean, again, Episcopalian Church is a main line denomination, huge. And, if they were lumping, if MSN News was lumping like the Catholic Church into that kind of belief system of like, hey, that's what they believe too. Then I imagine, yeah, probably a predominant amount of Christendom maybe does think that way. I don't think any of us would. I don't think any of us would go, hey, let's not have mercy on people. Let's not be gracious towards people. Let's not be kind. I don't think anybody would want to, a Christian or not, be against those things.
oh, I don't know, man. I
Yeah.
run into some people that are like, nah, squash the opposition.
Wow.
I mean, like, yeah, I know people that are like hardcore. They're like, no, you're either with us or you're against us. No mercy. Like, I don't approve of what you're doing. And not, I'm not even talking like skinheads or anything. I'm talking like, regular, what you would think is regular people that are like really extreme like that.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, just like hardcore. And then I was like, I remember there was one guy I was talking to, and he was like, I was like, well, what if someone's like really old, man? What if they're like grew up in the 60s, and they're from the 50s, and they just have a different worldview? Will you like cut them a little slack if they're just like, I don't understand? No, get with the times, dinosaur. Like, no, we don't need those people around anymore then. And I'm like, whoa,
That's
dude, that's
tough.
like, yeah, I was like, that's like a different generation, man. That's like from a different time. The world was different then.
Yeah, I just got done Amos, and in Amos 9, Yahweh says to through Amos to Israel, he says, "Man, do you think you're any different than the Ethiopians? Do you think you're any different than anybody?" And the answer is no. Meaning you don't understand that you're the people you're pointing at and saying they're bad, you're just as bad. And Yahweh has to say that to the nation of Israel. And I found that, somewhat convicting of just, when you think you stand, take heed, right? Lest you fall.
Yeah.
That there is an arrogance that we have, that we're thinking like, oh no, just, yeah, squash the enemy, squash the enemy, squash the enemy. But we don't realize that maybe we're the enemy. That maybe we are contributing to it all. Maybe we're doing wrong. And the problem is I just got done Obadiah today, and Obadiah is all about pride. About, you think you've built this great monument, man, but it's going to get tore down. you know and I think a lot of us are like that too. We build ourselves up, and we think everybody else is in the off, are off, and we're right, and we got it all together. But when we all stand before God, we will be judged by the true and living God.
Yeah.
And that is a radical idea. um, and that should make us as Christians compassionate, if anything, and make us go, hey, again, Jesus' encounter with this woman was straightforward in John 4. But he did say, hey, you do not know what you believe. Salvation is of the Jews. But he spends time with her. And it's not just a fly-by-night thing. He's sitting with her for a length of time, having a private discussion with her.
Yeah, he's like dialoguing with her. He just doesn't like go and like hit her over the head with it.
Right.
And I believe that wholeheartedly. You gotta like I believe you gotta earn the right to speak into someone's life. Like if I'm gonna like try to evangelize you, if I work with you or something, I'm gonna like I want to get to know you. Like, why do you feel that way? Where do you get? Well, okay, like where do you get those ideas from? Like, I want to, and I am generally interested. It's not like I'm just waiting to like, okay, say your piece so I can jump in and pull out the sword of the spirit and hit you with it.
Right.
It's like no, like, well, why do you believe that way? Well, this is what I believe, and this is why I believe it. And people are a lot more open to those kind of things. They want to know that you actually care about them,
Yeah.
just not, or otherwise, a lot of times you're just bullying.
Yeah.
I don't believe like you're stupid for believing that. Why? That is ridiculous. Why would you believe that?
Yeah. Well, that sounds like the attitude that Jesus had to really attack the Pharisees about.
Yeah, his harshest words were always for the Pharisees.
Yeah. So it's, I think would I like to see that attitude in Donald Trump? Yeah, I would love to see that attitude where it was like softer, and there was more thought behind what he said. And it was more biblical thought. When I mean more thought, I mean more biblical thought. More thinking compassionately, learning how to hold the truth, but also hold mercy as well. And this is what the Bible is all about. God is merciful and gracious to thousands upon thousands, Exodus 34, but he does not overlook the iniquity from generation to generation, meaning he upholds righteousness. And the president should uphold what he believes to be true. But you have to also, to me, you have to show kindness. You have to show mercy. And it's kind of interesting. I've heard a lot of people say like, well, man, he's so, I love him because he's so strong, and they kind of always have that, he's a strong leader, and I don't know, man. It's like, I don't know if that's the best. I mean, to have, when you have strength without, you got to have fragileness too.
Yeah, you got to be meek.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, you walk around cowering. That means strength and control.
Yeah.
You know when to use it. You just don't lash out.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not real strength. That like shows insecurity.
Yeah.
Someone
yeah.
who's really secure, I don't need to go walk around and tell you I'm a black belt in this and that and the other. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, that's a good
I know
point.
I'm true. I know who I am and who I'm not. And that's like where I believe real power comes from.
Yeah.
And I think Jesus exudes that all through the Gospels. Like he was just kind of laying back, kicking back in the cut. Like he didn't have to flex. He knew who he was. Like,
yeah, which is so awesome. It's such a beautiful quality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had more of that quality.
Yeah.
I tend to want to, puff my chest out and walk around and get out of my way.
And you're a
Here
tall
I
guy.
come, yeah. But I wish I had more of that meekness in me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really interested in some of the dialogue more sexually with how this is going to play out in the next month. The there was a lot of people in LGBTQ communities at one point that voted for Trump. There's no doubt about it. You have different podcasters that are very popular and that are married and gay in homosexual marriages, and they are very much for Trump and was for the turning of the tide in the presidency. And so they're not afraid of Trump. They don't think Trump's going to do some weird thing, some dictator thing and go rogue. And I'm wondering how they're gonna kind of perceive things and how their podcasts, what they're gonna say. I'm really looking at the Rubin Report. I forget his first name. Rubin's first name.
I don't know.
I think that Rubin's his last name. But anyway, he's a gay man, married, lives in Florida now. He's got a huge popular political podcast, very much for Trump. I think he toured with Jordan Peterson for years on one of Jordan's book tours. So very intellectual guy. But I'm kind of looking forward to listening to him too. And
I like seeing like people being moderate.
yeah,
Like now every day is like you got to be all in or all out. Like there's no
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with some of the things Trump says, but I don't agree with everything. But like no, it's like you got to toe the party line, man. You got to
Yeah.
like buy into the ideology all the way, or you're not really one of
Yeah,
us.
and when you think about it this way too, I was thinking about this too. Say with the transgender ideology and world, right? You have a group of people in the country, whether you think it's good or bad, you have this, where there is, biological females that want to use maybe men's bathrooms, and then you have biological males that want to use female bathrooms, and you have this kind of contention, right? Of and then you have in the jails, especially right now, is the hot button topic, right? With the transgender issue and stuff like that, and the different things that Trump's doing right off the bat, and it almost creates, like, to me, I was thinking this. Let me try to explain this to you, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. But it seems like that what's happened in the country is we've created through kind of more transgender ideologies is like another group of folk. Does that make sense? And it's almost like it doesn't fit into the world that most of us live in. And so we almost need to create and you hate to say like restaurants or you know what I mean?
Go back to the like separate but equal.
Yeah, but it's almost like, you have to create like spaces. Some kind of space.
But that's not what they want. They don't want their own space. They wouldn't be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a third bathroom. We'll make 4 bathrooms, okay?
Yeah.
We'll make 4 bathrooms. So we got like cis male, cis female.
Right.
And then we got
That's what I was thinking.
this for this, and no, that's not what they want though. They want you have to agree with me. You have to affirm my beliefs. It's no, I don't want anything else. I want you to affirm what I believe.
Yeah, and that's the difficult part, right? Because they have an ideology and they say, hey, so they're being fundamental. So when they say we're fundamentalist, well, they themselves are fundamentalist.
Yeah, exactly.
They become fundamentalist because they fundamentally will not change.
Yeah.
They will not budge, because it seems like what we could do, like as a country, people need more work, and people, hey, let's build infrastructure. Let's build another bathroom. Let's build in every place. Let's build 2 more bathrooms. We can build, and you know what? We can start another whole league, in sports, where it is just, these are transgender men. These are transgender women. And there you go. But you're right. It won't work because they're fundamentalist.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's like, so they are just as fundamentalist as the fundamental Christian
Yeah.
who's touting his thing or her thing. you know?
But they can't. That's where it's like, I'm like, okay, what are you basing this off though? Why do you feel that way? Like, I always go back to like, well, this is because what the Bible tells me, and this is what I believe. And what are you basing
Yeah,
your beliefs on?
yeah, an appeal to
Well,
authority.
that's the way
Yeah,
I feel.
yeah,
Well, okay, but like I could feel all kinds of crazy things. Like I feel like stabbing someone. Does that mean I should go do it?
right.
Like
Yeah,
you have no higher power that you can fall back on where you're getting your authority from. It's just
yeah.
let's just make it up as we
Well,
go.
it's an appeal to authority, and they might not know where it comes from, but it does come from the humanistic, hedonistic philosophies that have come from philosophers and educators in our world. They might not know their names. They might have never read, different people, but this is where this is all coming from. It's just kind of trickled down into their culture, and so that's what they're getting. So in a sense, it's no different than someone who's raised in a Christian home, and someone says, "Well, hey, you were raised in a Christian home, and that's why you believe what you believe." The Christian could always say to that person, "Well, hey, you were raised in this philosophy,
Hmm.
and so that's why you're believing what you're believing." See, it's an appeal to authority. Everybody's appealing to some authority. What we're saying as Christians is just that Jesus is a greater authority. He is the greater source of truth as far as life in the afterlife. And
Reminds me what you were just talking about. Reminds me of this lady. This was before I was a believer, a long time ago when I was like in my early 20s. I met this lady. She was Jehovah's Witness. And I was like, just asking her, like, oh, what do you? I knew a little bit about you guys don't celebrate holidays and all this stuff. So I'm just trying to ask, like, oh, what do you guys believe? Like, what do you know? I was just genuinely curious. And she's like, oh, and she started with like, well, you know what? I'm probably just a Jehovah's Witness because I grew up in a Jehovah's Witness home. If I grew up in China, I'd probably be a Buddhist or a Taoist or something. And I was like, wow, that's like the weakest reason to to believe anything, Like, so you're just going with the flow,
yeah,
huh? Any dead fish can float downstream, like.
right.
Yeah, especially back then, I was like, let's buck the system. Let's rage against the machine. Like, I wanted to be contrarian just to be contrarian. Like,
Right. Well, that was the whole music scene.
yeah, give me what do you got? What are you rebelling against? Well, what do you got?
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's like cuz you think like, well, just build a system. Build a space and live in your space. No one needs to argue with you. You'll be safe. You won't have to deal with anybody who thinks different. Anything like that.
Well, and people are doing that. Like this whole homesteading movement has become really big, where people are like, I'm gonna go move out to the country. I'm gonna buy like 4 acres of land.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
gonna get a bunch of
my friends
pigs
did.
and chickens, and I don't have to deal with no one. I can my own little world out here, man. I go to the city once a month to get some supplies, and then I
Yep.
can do whatever I want out here. Live
Yeah.
however I feel.
No, I have a what I do in Texas is on a property like that where my friend did it. He bought two properties, both very large. He has his restaurant and a coffee roasting facility on one, all of his homes on one, everything. I mean,
Is he Christian?
yeah,
That surprises me even more because you never see that. Jesus never says like, "Hey, get away from everybody, go hide and seclude yourself."
but he's not away from the town. So he's within the town. But it is a big lot. You would think of it as like a compound. It's gated around. You can go in because he has a restaurant for the people of the town to go to, and they can come in. He converts his restaurant into a church during Sundays, and he has church service and everything like that. But his whole family has homes right there. It's all on the property.
That's why I like respect what you were saying you did, earlier in the podcast, talking about how you sent your daughter to San Francisco to go to school. I wouldn't do that. I would be too fearful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to send my kid to San Francisco. Are you insane? You know what
Yeah.
goes on out in San Francisco?
Yeah, totally. I know.
And when you said that, it totally reminded me of like Francis Chan was talking about how he was in San Francisco at the time living there and
Yeah.
how he sent his kids to public school because he's like, I want to build up warriors in Christ.
Yeah.
I don't want to isolate them away in our own little Christian bubble. He's like, I want them to learn how to evangelize people and learn what they're going to face when they're out in the world. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm not doing them any favors by sheltering them.
Yeah, and it's just I do believe that every parent needs to do what they do unto the Lord. bottom line, not out of fear, but out of faith. We believed just in that idea of being evangelical. I remember Francis Chan when, of course, I came to know Christ at Calvary Chapel, Simi Valley. Francis Chan, maybe 10 years after that, started a church in Simi Valley called, I think, Cornerstone, maybe. And and I remember I was already out here helping Scott start this church, and I remember a friend said, "Hey, can you come to my church? The pastor's really cool. I'd love for you to just get your take on what you think of him." And so I went to Cornerstone there in my hometown, and where I went to high school in Simi Valley, and listened to him teach. And he was probably, I would imagine, he was in his 20s at the time. And I remember going, man, he sounds like a Calvary Chapel pastor. I mean, he just sounds like a really very good teacher, loves God, just, exudes the love of God. And the church was very Calvary Chapel like, even though it was called Cornerstone. I think Francis is very familiar with Calvary Chapel. And that's where I first met him. And and then I always found it interesting that when he left everything and went to San Francisco and did that, and then we had that opportunity with our daughter, and of course that came to my mind, is that, hey, Francis Chan is in Frisco, and I told our daughter that, and I said I think they're doing home fellowships, in all around San Fran, and so man, I mean, it was a great example to me too of, I think Francis was a good example to a lot of us, but of just stepping out. And so when the opportunity came for San Francisco, we didn't shy away from it. We went after it, and we thought, let's just do this. And of course, maybe people would like to know, like, well, what happened? But there's always dirt you get on you. That's why, the Jews, when they went into foreign places, right? And when they came back into Israel territory, they would wipe the dirt from their clothes, saying like, oh, get all this paganism off me, kind of thing. But in a sense, there's always that. There's always poop that gets on you a little bit. And there's always risk, but we chose to do it. And it's been really cool. It was a very neat experience.
That's cool.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, cool podcast.
Yes.